All right, we're back with another Fireside Chat with Brad. I was listening to a podcast with cognitive psychologist Steven Pinker, who raised an interesting point about conspiracy theories and why we are prone to believe in them. So this actually got me thinking about Homer's poem, the Iliad, and actually got me thinking about our current vaccine mandate. That may seem like a series of unusual correlations, but as always, I will explain them. So let's start with Homer's The Iliad. If you've never read the Iliad, it's basically a war between two factions in the Greco world, Greece. One of them being the Trojans of the city of Troy, and the other being the Achaeans. These are two different groups that basically don't get along, but are working to find amends until something happens, which is the king of the Trojans, whose name is Agamemnon, has a brother, and his name is Menelaus, and he has a wife named Helen, i.e. Helen of Troy. And of the Achaeans, you have the king of the Achaeans, and he has two sons. One of them is named Paris, and one of them is named Hector. Well, Paris is a bit of a playboy, and he ends up having an affair with Helen of Troy. And this ends up spawning the war between the Achaeans and the Trojans, okay? Ends up being a 10-year war, and it's bloody and it's nasty. The story is mostly actually about the hero Achilles, but what's relevant about this scenario is this. If you know anything about the story, it's how it ends, and that is the classic tale of the Trojan Horse. And what this is a scenario where after 10 years of war, the Achaeans pretend as though they have lost the battle, or at least given up. They send their ships off the shore, all the soldiers leave, in theory, and as a parting gift, they provide a horse, a large horse they built out of wood from debris and probably wreckages of their ships and things like this. Now, this isn't particularly unusual because it was often the case that after a war or a battle, soldiers would offer up an offering to the gods. So this is supposed to be an offering that's sent up to the god Poseidon to ensure they have a safe journey home. And they leave this at the Trojans' doorsteps because the one thing that made the Trojans so difficult to beat in battle is that they had a walled city. So while the Achaeans were a very powerful army and they had the greatest soldier of that time period, Achilles, they couldn't breach the walls. Well, of course, we mostly know this story, right? This is the story of the Trojan Horse. What in fact happens is they hide inside this gift, and the Achaeans escape from the horse and use it to open up the gates of the city of Troy, and in come the army of the Achaeans, and they sack the city, and that ends the war. Okay, so classic tale. Now, what does that have to do with these other things? Well, in this podcast that I was listening to with Steven Pinker, he mentions how the drive, the sort of human biological drive to believe in conspiracy theories comes back to our natural tribal ancestry. The way that this happens is this. Historically, wars and battles were not fought in the way that we do it in modern warfare, okay? Most people lived in small tribes, and those tribes would interact with other tribes, and those other tribes were oftentimes a threat. However, like in all cases, learning to get along was necessary, but you had to be suspicious because the way that one tribe would get defeated or dominated or sacked was often by another tribe infiltrating their tribe by using alternative tactics or alternative means. It was often by getting behind the city walls, getting in the gates, tricking them. Sometimes it was through a marriage, sometimes it was through trade or embargoes. Whatever it was oftentimes one group against another group, and one group feigning as though they're assisting or helping or supporting, and then actually using that to infiltrate and destroy. And so this is a sort of primal drive that we have where people, we tend to be tribal, we tend to pick a side, and we tend to be highly suspicious of any other tribe and any other belief, value, whatever, okay? because historically that was a threat. Now, if you think of human civilization, obviously people have had affairs, obviously people have lied, but the case of the Iliad is an important one because it teaches us something, and that is, while in this case there was an affair, it was an affair between enemies, and it resulted in a 10-year war. And in this case, there was deception and lies, but it resulted in the sacking of a city. And so there's a higher wager, a higher, how should I say it? There's more at stake when it's an enemy or an untrusted enemy that you have to put trust in. And so this is why I think in our current political climate, when we look at a two-party system, right and left, there tends to be skepticism of the other side. People tend to identify with one side versus the other, and therefore they become skeptical of the other side. So if you look at even something that's more recent, like the vaccine mandate, you'll find that people who are more on the left probably view this as a beneficial thing, and they think it's actually a needed intervention in order to prevent the spread of the virus. However, if you look at people on the right, they may be skeptical because they may think of this as a quote-unquote Trojan Horse. This is suspicious to them. The reality is both sides do this. Anytime the other side offers them something, they're suspicious of it. A simple, fun tool would be, most people I know are progressives and are more left-leaning, but how would you have felt if the scenario was reversed and actually, instead of it being a Biden administration, it was a Trump administration, and it was actually an untested new vaccine being implemented under the Trump administration? I think a lot of people would probably be skeptical, probably be concerned, because they would feel they didn't trust him. So this is all working together to form conspiracy theories. This is why they exist, and this is why people have this biological drive to be suspicious of otherness. It's a genuine, anchored survival technique that gets back to our cognitive psychology. So that's why it relates to the Iliad, that's why it relates to Steven Pinker, and that's why it relates to our current political climate. Have a great day. Say bye.
Bye.